Talking in terms of insurance values and so on, I think you've got to be looking at somewhere around about the £3,000 mark.
Really? As much as that?
Oh, yes. It's a very unusual piece.
What does true luxury look like? Sometimes it's a Cartier jewel. Sometimes it's a Fabergé masterpiece. And sometimes it's an antique so rare that collectors would pay a fortune just to own it. Welcome to our channel. Today, we're counting down the finest luxury antiques ever revealed on Antiques Roadshow.
I have brought a bracelet that my mother gave me several years ago, and she bought it before she was married. I believe it was in the 40s, and she told me she paid $35 for it. I know she liked estate jewelry, and she was interested in older pieces. I did look it up in a book several years ago and found out it was Spratling silver. It was collectible, and that's all I know.
But what her mother could not have known when she first bought this bracelet was that she had not just chosen a piece of jewelry she loved, she had unknowingly preserved a design connected to a man who helped transform the history of Mexican silver. When the expert examined the bracelet, the most important detail was not only the material or the appearance, it was the name behind it. William Spratling. In the world of Mexican silver, Spratling is considered one of the most influential figures. He helped turn Taxco from a city known for its silver resources into an internationally recognized center for handcrafted design. In 1931, Spratling opened his silver workshop in Taxco and began developing a completely new approach. Instead of simply copying popular European designs, he drew inspiration from Mexican culture, history, and artistic traditions, combining those influences with a more modern design language. And this bracelet represents that vision. It is known as the River of Life. More than just a simple silver bangle, its shape and movement create a distinctive style, the kind of details that collectors associate with Spratling's work. But the clues that help reveal more about its significance were the marks left on the piece. Those marks placed it between the 1940s and 1948, an important period before Mexico introduced the eagle mark system. For collectors, pieces from this early era are especially interesting because they represent the foundation years of the Taxco silver movement. And Spratling's influence went far beyond the pieces he personally designed. His workshop also trained many craftsmen who would later continue developing Mexican silver in their own ways. That is why the value of a bracelet like this is not only measured by the amount of silver used, it comes from the maker, the period when it was created, and the role it represents in the history of Mexican jewelry. A piece that was once purchased simply because someone loved it eventually became part of a much larger design story.
Those spherical balls there have been compressed, but it's in generally very nice shape for its age.
Good.
At an auction, I would give it an estimate of $1,000 to $2,000.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
From a bracelet originally bought for only a few dollars, it became a piece that collectors now recognize. But the most interesting part is not just how much its value changed. It is the fact that an ordinary family piece carried the mark of someone who helped shape an entire craft movement. A small silver bracelet from Taxco ultimately became a story about William Spratling and the legacy he left behind in 20th century design history. This next case begins with a ring that many people might judge only by looking at the diamonds. How large are the stones? Would it be worth more if they were removed and turned into something modern? But in antique jewelry, sometimes the greatest value is not found by changing a piece. It is found in everything the piece has managed to keep. Because this ring does not only carry diamonds, it carries a family story, a connection to the past, and a small piece of the Victorian era that survived for more than a century.
The ring belonged to my great-grandmother.
Who happens to be this lady here?
That's that lady there, yes.
In her court dress, perhaps, with fine lace and pearls. And that signals a pretty elevated status, doesn't it?
She was married to a guy called Clement Smith, and he was Queen Victoria's vicar.
Those few details immediately changed the story behind this ring. It was no longer just an old piece of jewelry. It belonged to a real person with a family history and a connection to the world of Queen Victoria through Clement Smith. But its value was not because it was a royal artifact. What fascinated the expert was how much of its original identity had survived. This is a Victorian 5-stone diamond ring, a 19th century style where multiple diamonds work together instead of relying on one large center stone. Over time, many antique rings have been altered. The stones are removed, recut, or placed into modern settings because people believe that will make them more valuable. But once that happens, something impossible to replace disappears: the original history. This ring was special because it still kept the setting, craftsmanship, and feeling of the period when it was created. Collectors are not only looking for diamonds. They are looking for pieces that still carry their original story. That is why the expert did not see this as a ring that should be taken apart. He saw it as a piece of the 19th century that had survived almost exactly as it was meant to be.
And this would be a complete travesty because this is a mid-19th century ring looking absolutely wonderful as it is. And I don't think anybody would dream much of doing that. So very pretty, original condition, enviable, marketable. So £3,000 to £5,000.
£3,000 to £5,000. But the real lesson was not only about the price. The value came from the fact that the ring remained unchanged after more than 150 years. If someone removed the diamonds, the stones would still exist, but the story around them would disappear. And that is what makes this Victorian 5-stone diamond ring special. Sometimes in antiques, the most valuable thing is not making something look newer. It is protecting the history that is already there.
Blue sky, huge crowd, great jewellery. One's a pendant, which I have here, and one is this rather dark, slightly sombre looking box. Tell me a bit about where they came from.
Well, I inherited them from my grandma.
With many antiques, the smallest details surrounding an object can sometimes be just as important as the piece itself. An old box, a tiny inscription, or a detail that seems ordinary can become the clue that helps experts uncover the true story behind an item.
However, when we look inside the lid of the box, we see that it has the name VEVER. Now, VEVER were a French company based in Paris.
And just one name completely changed the story. In the world of antique jewelry, the maker behind a piece can have a huge influence on its value. Historic jewelry houses attract collectors not only because of the materials they used, but also because of their distinctive style, craftsmanship, and artistic legacy.
Now, the flower itself looks a little bit like a convolvulus flower, which we know as bindweed, actually. This particular flower is morning glory.
The details of the brooch continue to support the story suggested by the box. Art Nouveau jewelry is known for taking inspiration from the natural world, using flowing shapes and organic designs to transform small pieces of jewelry into miniature works of art.
I think that would probably be worth something like £5,000.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
No, could even make 6 or 7.
The final valuation showed why provenance matters so much in the antique market. Two pieces may contain similar materials, but an item connected to a respected jewelry maker can hold a completely different level of appeal for collectors.
But you would agree, it's a very, very attractive piece. £6,000.
Wow.
The biggest surprise was that a small detail preserved over time helped reveal the story behind the entire brooch. That is what makes discoveries like this so fascinating. On Antiques Roadshow, value is not always hidden only in the object itself. Sometimes the overlooked details around it become the key to seeing a piece in an entirely new way. And the next item in today's countdown continues with another surprising discovery, where one small detail leads experts to one of the most famous jewelry names in the world. A family heirloom watch is usually enough to spark curiosity. But this case came with something extra: a tiny Louis Vuitton jewelry box. And when a Cartier watch is stored inside a miniature Louis Vuitton trunk, the story instantly becomes far more interesting. The owner brought in a watch that had traveled through generations of her family, from her great-grandmother to her grandparents, then her parents, and finally to her.
I brought a watch that was my great-grandmother's. It was passed down from my great-grandparents to my grandparents to my parents and then to me. Along with the watch, they gave me my great-grandmother's jewelry box, which I store it in.
The appraiser quickly realized this was no ordinary Cartier. It was a limited production Cartier ladies' tank dating to the mid-1970s. Diamonds appeared almost everywhere on the watch, from the dial and lugs to the case itself. Even the crown was set with a diamond rather than the sapphire typically found on most Cartier ladies' watches.
You're not going to see a whole lot like this particular model. It's a Cartier ladies tank. This is circa mid-1970s. The reason it's so unique, it was a limited production.
At this point, most people would assume that Cartier was the star of the story. But the appraiser suddenly shifted his attention to the box. As it turned out, the miniature Louis Vuitton trunk had a story of its own. Back in the 1950s, it was a display piece in a store and was never intended to be sold. Yet the owner's great-grandmother managed to convince the store to let her have it after purchasing an entire set of luggage.
And this was on display. It wasn't for sale. And she was able to convince the store to give it to her because she had purchased the larger size steamer trunk and the luggage.
Looking at the two pieces side by side, the appraiser could almost picture their original owner. A woman who loved famous brands, appreciated quality, and clearly knew how to get what she wanted.
What I see here is Cartier, French company, Louis Vuitton, French company. She liked everything French. She liked good names, good quality, owning nice things.
Then came the surprise.
So this one in today's market, a retail price on that is going to be $10,000 to $12,000.
Wow.
In today's market, retail on that, $2,000.
Wow.
The Cartier was valued at $10,000 to $12,000. But the little Louis Vuitton box carried a value of its own, around $2,000. Once again, Antique Roadshow reminded everyone of something surprisingly common in the world of hidden treasures. Sometimes the treasure isn't just what's inside the box. Sometimes the box itself is part of the treasure. If a genuine Picasso had been hanging on the wall above your kitchen stove for decades, would you even realize it? It sounds like the kind of story that's almost impossible to believe. Yet that's exactly how the next appraisal begins. For years, this ceramic plate was simply another familiar decoration that everyone in the family saw every single day. No one thought it was extraordinary. No one imagined it could become one of the biggest surprises of their visit to Antiques Roadshow.
We bought it in Rhode Island. Didn't even realize it was a Picasso until about 5 years ago.
The family had lived with this piece for a very long time. It had always been part of the house. It wasn't locked away for protection. It wasn't displayed as fine art. It was simply another household object that blended naturally into everyday life. There was never any reason to question what it might actually be.
That it hung over the stove in the kitchen.
Everything changed because of a completely unexpected encounter. A single reaction from someone with professional knowledge was enough to make the family see the plate in an entirely different way. For the first time, they began to wonder whether they had overlooked something remarkable for decades.
And the guy sort of gasped and said, "Over your stove?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a plate collection."
From that moment on, the process of verifying the plate's identity officially began. The experts carefully examined its details, comparing every characteristic until the true story of the piece slowly came into focus. What had once been treated as ordinary kitchen decor was now entering an entirely different world.
The actual name for this particular dish is face in an oval. Picasso did a lot of these special editions for the MADOURA studio in the south of France.
All right.
He actually did 633 different objects that were taken and they made special editions for. Some are jugs, some are figures, and some are dishes of different shapes and all. Now, you did mention that there was a little bit of enamel loss there,
yes,
and we do see that pretty regularly on some of these pieces that have high relief.
Yes.
But otherwise, it's in quite remarkable condition. What's really important to note for this is that in this particular issue, and by the way, this was done in 1955.
By now, everyone understood that this was far more than a decorative plate. Only one question remained unanswered. What was it actually worth in today's market?
The Picasso market, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's skyrocketed. It's just taken off tremendously. So you're snickering in advance. This is good. So what do you think it's worth today?
I haven't a clue.
You haven't a clue? Would you be surprised that an auction value in today's market, probably on the conservative side, would be in the range of $10,000 to $15,000? I love you too.
From a ceramic plate that spent decades hanging quietly above a family kitchen stove, to an authenticated work valued at between $10,000 and $15,000. It's a reminder that the line between an everyday decoration and a collectible work of art can be far smaller than most of us ever imagine.
It belongs to my mother.
Yes.
She was left it in a will about 55 years ago.
Yes.
And she wore it as a young lady.
Yes.
Went dancing in it, and it fell off. So that's why it's been left in its box in the safe.
For many years, this serpent bracelet was kept away and rarely appeared again. But behind its impressive design was a story that went far beyond an ordinary piece of gold and diamond jewelry. During the Victorian era, images used in jewelry were often chosen with a purpose. Each symbol could represent love, memory, or personal messages that the owner wanted to preserve. And the serpent shape on this bracelet was the first important clue.
Yes, the snake biting its tail is a very ancient emblem of eternity. It's called the Ouroboros, the eternally renewing circle. And the fact it's gold that's incorruptible, and these are all metaphors for love.
During the Victorian period, jewelry was not only a display of wealth or social status. Every shape, color, and material could carry its own meaning. The serpent became one of the most famous symbols of this era, especially after serpent jewelry became popular among the European upper class. But after a closer inspection, the expert discovered this bracelet was not simply a piece representing connection. Hidden behind the beauty of gold and diamonds was another layer of meaning, something much deeper and more emotional.
But it's more than that, actually. It's probably a very sophisticated piece of mourning jewelry. So, mourning is love beyond the grave.
Mourning jewelry was created to preserve memories of loved ones who had passed away. Rather than just decoration, these pieces became personal keepsakes, combining craftsmanship with the stories of the people who owned them. And on this bracelet, a small hidden detail on the back revealed its true meaning.
And so, I think it's worth £8,000 to £10,000.
Really? As much as that? Goodness.
The hidden details transform this bracelet from a beautiful piece of jewelry into an object preserving memories from nearly 2 centuries ago. Together with its flexible design, well-preserved enamel, and diamond-decorated serpent head, the piece showed the exceptional craftsmanship of the Victorian era. A bracelet that spent years locked away in a safe ultimately revealed a story of love, loss, and the jewelry-making skill of a time long past. Tiffany glass mosaics. Could pieces of glass removed from an old building actually be the remains of a masterpiece created more than 100 years ago? At first glance, they might look like decorative pieces left behind after a renovation. But behind these glass fragments is the story of Tiffany Studios, one of the most famous names in American decorative art history. And the discovery began with a building that had been forgotten for decades.
Tell me how you came to acquire these very large and heavy pieces.
We took possession of the Farwell building in 2015, 100 years after it was built. The 3 main lobby glass tile domes were Louis Tiffany. They were in severe disrepair. They were not restorable.
What makes this story special is that these were not individual Tiffany objects created for display. They were once part of a complete architectural space where glass, color, and light came together as one large design. But after many years, much of the original structure was no longer intact.
The building had been vacant for 35 years or so. Lots of things were destroyed and stolen. So we rebuilt the ceilings completely, and these are the remnants of what was there.
That is why the surviving pieces became much more important. Many historic architectural details disappear over time, but these glass sections still preserve traces of a historic Tiffany project. And even more surprisingly, their origin was clearly documented.
Well, I can tell you that Tiffany was so proud of this that they even published an ad stating that they had just done the work in the Farwell building. So this was something that Tiffany wanted to advertise prominently. And the building did open in March of 1915. And Tiffany decorated the first floor corridors with these wonderful barrel vaulted ceilings with rib vaults.
This historical record transformed the glass pieces from remnants of an old building into part of the legacy of Tiffany Studios. In the collecting world, provenance like this can make a huge difference. And finally, the true value of these century-old mosaics was revealed.
This one, I would say more like 15,000 to 20,000. This one, I would say 30 to 40,000.
Wow, that's incredible.
30 to 40,000 on that, and I would say 30 to 40,000 on that.
From pieces of glass that seemed like simple remains of an old structure, they became a memorable discovery on Antiques Roadshow. Their value came not only from the Tiffany name, but also from the story of a time when architecture, craftsmanship, and art were brought together into one creation. Martin Brothers Double Grotesque Bird Jar. Continuing the countdown are ceramic pieces that were never designed to look perfect or traditionally elegant. With oversized beaks, unusual eyes, and almost human-like expressions, these birds have always divided opinions. But that strange appearance is exactly what made Martin Brothers pottery one of the most recognizable styles in ceramics.
There are fewer things more distinctive than Martin Brothers pottery. And I think if we went round this crowd here and asked them their opinion, it would be a very mixed and split audience between love, loathe, and plain curiosity. So I have to ask, of those three, which are you?
Martin ware was never created to please everyone. Its appeal comes from the combination of skilled craftsmanship and unusual imagination. For the owner, her love for these pieces started long before the market fully recognized their value.
Well, I was left a very small vase, which isn't here, many years ago, and I fell in love with Martin ware.
But in the 70s, whilst Martin Brothers was beginning to become recognised, it was still derided by many people.
At that time, many people still considered these ceramic creatures too strange, but he saw personality in every expression. Martin Brothers was a pottery workshop run by the four Martin brothers, known for handmade creations unlike anything else. Their famous grotesque bird jars were more than decorative objects. Each bird felt like its own character, with a mood, attitude, and story.
And, you know, this chap here, this pair of birds, just turn it round, they're giving each other a hug. These boys are friends.
That sense of life is what made Martin ware increasingly desirable among collectors. Over time, the features once considered strange became the exact reasons people wanted them. The glaze, expression, rarity, and condition could all greatly affect the value. And in this collection, the biggest surprise was the double bird jar.
It's a great-looking pair, good colour, but it isn't as big as that one at the end of the day, and we've got to factor that in. And because it isn't as big, but it is a double, it's worth £60,000.
Gosh. This pair alone was valued at £60,000, bringing the collection to an incredible level. But the most remarkable part is that the owner did not collect them because of a trend. He loved them when many people still did not understand Martin ware's value. The strange faces, unusual expressions, and once controversial designs became what made them unforgettable. Sometimes the greatest value begins with seeing beauty where others do not. The Fabergé flower.
We call it the regimental jewel. The regiment, the Worcestershire Yeomanry, later to become the Queen's Own Worcestershire Hussars, was formed in 1794 to protect these shores against a Napoleonic invasion.
At first glance, it's just a small flower displayed in a clear vase. But from the moment the expert saw it, he knew he was looking at something extraordinary. Known as the regimental jewel, this piece belongs to the Worcestershire Yeomanry. Its story dates back to the Boer War, when soldiers left home to fight overseas. Before they departed, they were given silk pear blossoms to wear on their hats as a reminder of the county they were leaving behind. After the war, the Countess of Dudley commissioned Fabergé to create a permanent version of that flower.
This looks for all the world like a glass vase, and there's a stratagem here that it's filled with water, and this is the meniscus, the top of the water, but in actual fact it isn't. It's a solid block of what is apparently glass, but it's certainly not. It's stone. It's rock crystal. The flowers are made of enamelled silver and tiny silver stamens, but in the centre there's a dewdrop of diamond.
The closer it was examined, the more remarkable it became. The vase isn't glass at all, but carved rock crystal. The stem is made of gold. The blossoms are crafted from enameled silver. At the center of each flower sits a tiny diamond dewdrop. Even the leaves are carved from Siberian jade. But its true value goes far beyond the precious materials. This isn't simply a Fabergé masterpiece. It serves as a symbol connecting generations of soldiers from the same regiment.
I think it provides that link for all the different ages of soldiers that have soldiered with the regiment and are intending in the future to soldier with the regiment.
I find Fabergé things on the Antiques Roadshow, but nothing of this scale. And I can tell you that the size of the object, the sophistication of the object, the provenance of the object brings it very, very close to only 2 other flower studies in the United Kingdom which are in the Royal Collection. Given what are the qualifications I've already put on this object, it is a towering masterpiece of the goldsmith's art by the most famous goldsmith of the 20th century.
Although he had appraised many Fabergé pieces before, the expert said he had never encountered anything like this on Antiques Roadshow. And then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Can you guess what it was worth?
This is worth £1 million.
Really? It certainly isn't
No.
for sale.
Well, that's the
I'm
rub.
just a custodian.
I know.
But for its owner, this was never something to be sold. It is a piece of regimental history preserved on behalf of those who served in the past and those who will serve in the future. The British Army Silver Centrepiece.
It was presented to the 10th Hussars, Prince of Wales's own, by King George IV on his accession to the throne.
This centerpiece once stood in the officers' mess of the King's Royal Hussars and came with a remarkable connection to both the British Army and the monarchy. That history alone would have made it an important object, but the appraisal took an unexpected turn when the expert began examining the maker's mark.
We've actually got a maker's mark appearing here, and the maker's mark there is PR. Now that is not Paul Storr's mark.
For years, it had been believed that the piece was made by Paul Storr, one of Britain's most celebrated silversmiths. Yet the mark stamped into the silver told a different story.
Rundle, Bridge and Rundle, the Royal Goldsmiths. The maker's mark there is that of Philip Rundell. I would suggest the greatest firm that there has ever been in the history of silver.
Far from reducing its importance, that discovery linked the centerpiece to an even more influential name. Rundell. Bridge and Rundell served as royal goldsmiths and employed many of the finest craftsmen of the Regency era. The piece itself was made of silver gilt, silver covered with a layer of gold, and was designed less as a practical object and more as a statement of prestige and power. Most importantly, it was unique. Commissioned by a king. Presented to one of Britain's most distinguished cavalry regiments. Those details placed it in a category few antiques could ever reach.
And its last valuation, we believe about 10 years ago, had it in the area of £750,000.
Right, 750,000. I would go along with that. It is, after all, a unique piece, commissioned by the king for presentation to one of the greatest of all the regiments.
£750,000 for a piece of silver. But for collectors, its true value lies in something much rarer. A one-of-a-kind object that connects the British monarchy, the military, and more than 2 centuries of history.
You know, on the Antiques Roadshow we see everything, but rarely do I get presented with something that is quite so spectacular as this diamond necklace. It's not just a diamond necklace, it's like a diamond skipping rope.
From the moment this necklace was revealed, the expert knew this was no ordinary piece of diamond jewelry. Its enormous size alone was enough to impress, but the story behind it made the piece even more special. The necklace once belonged to Lady Astor, one of the most famous figures in British history, who later donated this precious piece to the city of Plymouth so future Lady Mayoresses could wear it during important occasions. But its famous former owner was only part of the story. A closer inspection revealed that the necklace itself was also a masterpiece of early 20th century jewelry.
I think that this is a pre-First World War platinum, diamond and sapphire necklace that was bought second-hand. I think this necklace was from a high-class American jeweler.
From platinum, diamonds, and sapphires, the necklace carried all the qualities of luxury jewelry created before the First World War. During this era, high-end pieces were not only designed to look spectacular, but also to showcase exceptional craftsmanship. And what surprised the expert even more was that this necklace was not limited to just one form.
that it breaks down into no less than 6 separate components. And this was another feature of jewellery of that period, that you could wear it as one long necklace or break it down into a series of shorter bracelets.
The combination of its complex design, valuable gemstones, and connection to Lady Astor turned it into exactly the kind of piece collectors search for. Because in the world of antique jewelry, provenance can sometimes make an already rare item even more valuable. Then came the final appraisal.
I think it would sell for probably at least £300,000 to £400,000, at least. And I think, bearing in mind that provenance can make a huge difference, this has to be worth for insurance at least £500,000 to £600,000.
More than just a necklace covered in diamonds, Lady Astor's jewelry became a combination of beauty, craftsmanship, and a historic story lasting over a century. The Jade Imperial Seal.
I brought 2 jade tablets and a jade seal that belonged to my great-great-grandmother. I have been told they are 18th century from China.
The family believed these pieces dated to 18th century China and had been passed down through several generations. Presented to the expert were 2 inscribed jade plaques and a jade seal, topped with a pair of dragons, a motif long associated with power, authority, and the imperial court.
The seal's a symbol of imperial authority.
But a closer examination revealed an important clue carved into the plaques.
Dated here, Guangshi, first year of Guangshi, which is 1875.
That inscription suggested the story might not belong to the 18th century after all. Instead, the objects appeared to be connected to the late Qing dynasty and possibly even to an imperial jade book or court-related commission. At that moment, the value of the collection began to change dramatically.
My mother had them appraised in 2007 for $1,400.
Together as a associated pair, they would carry an auction estimate of $20,000 to $30,000.
Okay, wow.
The 2 plaques alone were worth far more than the earlier appraisal suggested. But the jade seal was the real star of the evaluation.
And the seal appraised for $1,400 also.
Conservatively, at auction, it would carry an auction estimate of $30,000 to $50,000.
Okay, all right.
Even under a conservative assessment, its value had increased many times over. Yet the expert was not finished. If further research confirmed a strong connection to the Guangxu period, everything could move to an entirely different level.
So it may carry an auction estimate of $300,000 to $500,000.
Oh, is that all? Okay. Well, that's a little bit different than what I was expecting today, but oh my, thank you. That's amazing.
What had once been a collection valued at only a few $1,000s now carried the potential to become an imperial treasure worth as much as $500,000. Not bad for a group of jade pieces that had spent decades quietly sitting in the family.
This is a unique moment on the Antiques Roadshow. In all the years I've been on the roadshow, we have never had a Victoria Cross, the highest award for gallantry this country has. Who was this man?
This was my wife's grandfather.
The moment the Victoria Cross appeared, the expert knew this was something truly special. Unlike treasures valued for gold or gemstones, the importance of this medal came from the story behind it. It is Britain's highest military award for gallantry, given only for extraordinary acts of bravery.
He did this during the Battle of Passchendaele. Do you know what he did?
He took charge when he saw that the platoon that he was with were coming under intense machine gun fire. He rushed forward and attacked German machine gun posts.
The story behind the medal takes us back to the Battle of Passchendaele during the First World War. In a dangerous moment, with his unit trapped under heavy machine gun fire, Sergeant James Ockenden stepped forward, took command, and carried out the action that would secure his place in history.
Okay. So this is what the king would have been told. Noticing the right platoon held up by an enemy machine gun which was causing many casualties, he, with absolute disregard for his personal safety, immediately rushed the gun, killed 2 of the gunners and followed and killed the 3rd who was making his escape across no man's land. For that, he is awarded the Victoria Cross.
The official citation explains why the Victoria Cross is considered such an exceptional honor. Each medal represents more than a soldier's achievement. It preserves a moment of courage and a story that continues to be remembered through generations.
You any idea what they might be worth?
Not really. It's something that will never leave the family.
250 to 300,000 pounds.
I didn't think it would be that much.
Easily.
The final valuation revealed just how significant this family heirloom had become. Estimated at between £250,000 and £300,000, the medal carried a value that surprised the family. But beyond the number, the Victoria Cross remained a powerful reminder of bravery, sacrifice, and the story of one man whose actions have been honored for generations. The Imperial Chinese Robe.
There are those moments in your life that you will always remember, and I will always remember standing here, but I'll certainly always remember the first time that I saw this spectacular robe.
Some discoveries stay with an expert forever. This robe was one of them. The family explained that it had been brought back to Britain from Asia by their grandfather many decades ago. Beyond that, very little was known about its history. What truly shocked everyone, however, wasn't where it came from. It was where it had been kept.
It was in the dressing up box.
No. So, did you wear it as a child?
Oh, yes.
For years, generations of children had treated it as a costume. Only during this appraisal did the family discover what they actually owned. The expert quickly dated the robe to around 1,750 and realized it was something exceptionally rare.
So look, 1750, it certainly would be imperial.
This was an imperial Chinese court robe, nearly 275 years old. Its details revealed its status immediately. 5 clawed dragons, flaming pearls, crashing waves, and a richly woven red brocade lining were all symbols associated with the highest levels of the imperial court. Objects like this rarely appear on the open market. In fact, the expert struggled to think of another comparable example outside a major museum collection.
The only other ones I know of this type, you'd have to go to Beijing and you'd have to go to the Palace Museum to see one of these.
There were signs of age. Some of the metallic threads had oxidized, and evidence suggested the hem had been altered at some point in its history. Yet none of that diminished its extraordinary rarity. For the expert, this was the kind of object most people never encounter in an entire career. Then came the valuation.
If that comes up at auction, with the way the market is at the moment, I think that would make £200,000.
Oh. Severely oh.
£200,000 for a robe that had spent decades in a dressing-up box. And in that moment, the owner immediately understood one thing.
Well, we won't put it in the dressing-up box again.
To the family, it was simply a beautiful CELADON charger brought back from Japan many years ago. No one imagined they had been living with a masterpiece created for the Imperial Court of China.
It is a CELADON bowl that was a gift to me from my uncle, who brought it from Japan. This stuff sat in my grandmother's attic for a good many years, and finally he rediscovered it and gave it to me as a Christmas gift to my husband.
The charger remained in the family as a special Christmas gift, and for years that was the end of its story. It was so large that the owner even took a photograph of her cat sitting comfortably inside it. Everyone laughed at the memory, but while the audience enjoyed the story, the appraiser was already focused on something entirely different.
I've actually got a picture of my cat sitting in that bowl at some point or another.
The first is the label on this box.
The first thing he examined was not the charger itself, but the wooden presentation box. That box unlocked the entire mystery. It revealed that this was not a Japanese piece at all, but an Imperial Chinese CELADON charger made during the Yongjung reign. The elegant jade green glaze, the finely molded dragon decoration, and the exceptional firing quality all reflected the extraordinary standards of the imperial kilns at Jingdezhen, where only the finest porcelains were produced for the Qing court.
At auction today, in 2021, I would put perhaps a conservative auction estimate of $80,000 to $120,000.
And it's under my bed all the time?
The final auction estimate came in at $80,000 to $120,000. Only then did the owner realize that an imperial masterpiece had been sitting underneath her bed for years. Number 3 perfectly captures what makes Antiques Roadshow so fascinating. Sometimes the greatest treasures are not displayed in museums or locked away in famous collections. They are quietly waiting to be rediscovered inside someone's own home. Some collections become valuable because of their size. Others are admired because of their rarity. But the next collection carries something even more remarkable: centuries of history, art, and culture engraved directly into every weapon. And the moment the expert saw these pieces, he almost immediately realized he was looking at something extraordinary.
Can you tell me how they came into your possession?
They belong to my dad from his collection. There is around about 500 pieces in his collection.
500 artifacts. A lifetime devoted to collecting. The pieces on the table today represent only a small part of that remarkable collection. According to the expert, the owner's father began collecting at exactly the right time, long before the market truly recognized the value of Asian military antiques.
This one in particular is one of my favorites. It's a South Indian bichua.
Okay.
Bichua translates as scorpion sting.
The first piece immediately caught the expert's attention. Not simply because it was a rare weapon, but because the bronze hilt tells stories drawn from Hindu mythology. At that moment, it became clear that this was far more than a weapon. It was also a work of art.
And up here we have a katar, or a katar, and it's a classical Indian weapon, a punch dagger. This example is 17th century, possibly late 16th century.
Wow.
Then came another extraordinary piece. A katar dating from the late 16th or early 17th century. It had already existed long before many modern nations were even founded. But the biggest surprise was still waiting.
It's not a piece to be used in anger.
Okay.
It's a status object or a gift. Must have been made as a special commission for a ruler, a Maharaja.
This was never intended to be an ordinary battlefield weapon. It was commissioned specifically for a Maharaja, a symbol of authority and prestige rather than a tool of combat. That royal provenance immediately placed it in an entirely different category.
He got his investment back right with this piece here, £8,000 to £10,000.
Wow.
The punch dagger, the katar at the top here, a similar one was sold in a German auction a few years ago, approximately £30,000, £35,000. The one at the front, it's unique. A conservative figure would be 30 to 40,000.
Oh my, right.
Total value, we're looking at 70 to 80,000 pounds.
It's a powerful reminder that the greatest value isn't always found in one extraordinary object. Sometimes it's found in the vision of a collector who recognized true significance long before the rest of the world did. We've officially reached the top 10, and the next case begins in a way that will feel very familiar to longtime Antiques Roadshow viewers. An old box, a forgotten piece of jewelry, and a family that knew almost nothing about where it came from. After their mother passed away, the family began sorting through years of stored keepsakes and personal belongings. Among the various small boxes was a piece of jewelry that nobody could remember ever seeing before. It had spent years sitting quietly out of sight. No one knew its history, and no one was even certain it was genuine.
When our mother died, because my sister here, we went through sort of various little boxes and things of nothing in particular, and we each had a choice, and this was my choice. And I mean, I don't even know if it's real. We never saw it. My mother never wore it.
At that point, it sounded like the beginning of countless other family heirloom stories. But within moments, the expert knew he was looking at something far more interesting.
Yes, well, it certainly is real, actually. It's a most fascinating jewel.
The piece wasn't actually made during the 18th century. Instead, it belonged to the 19th century revival of 18th century French jewelry, a period when designers looked back to the elegance and craftsmanship of an earlier age for inspiration. Blue enamel, diamonds, rubies, an intricate gold framework. And hidden on the reverse was a small locket compartment designed to hold a photograph or even a lock of hair from someone dearly loved. This wasn't simply jewelry created to be worn. It was jewelry created to preserve memories.
It's inspired by 18th century France. But we can say with absolute confidence this isn't an 18th century jewel. It's an 18th century revival one. And blue enamel, diamonds, a little ruby in the front, and turn it over and there's a locket at the back.
But the surprises didn't end there. Accompanying the locket was a remarkable bead brooch created by La Cloche-Frères, one of France's most prestigious jewelry houses and a direct competitor to Cartier during the golden age of French luxury jewelry.
It's absolutely there. They're a very distinguished firm running in competition with Cartier.
Set with Celadon sapphires, diamonds, ruby eyes, and brought to life through an incredibly dynamic design, the brooch quickly became the star of the appraisal.
And everybody wants this thing, honestly they do, and value is to do with measured want. That's all that value is, and I'm going to tell you that in measured want that's £10,000.
God. The locket didn't reach quite that level, but even it delivered a valuation that left the family stunned.
But quite enough at, say, £4,500–5,000.
Not bad at all for a piece that spent years forgotten inside a family box. And it's exactly the kind of discovery that has made Antiques Roadshow famous for uncovering hidden treasures in the most unexpected places. Some objects are so small that most people would dismiss them as old makeup cases. But sometimes a compact can be worth more than a major piece of jewelry. This case began with 3 accessories that had been passed down through generations of the same family. At first glance, they looked like elegant little cases designed for evenings out. Then the name Cartier appeared. And after that came an even bigger surprise.
My mom's mother inherited them from her cousin. He got them from his parents, and I've now inherited them.
The appraiser started with the first compact, a Cartier design in 1/8, karat gold dating from around the 1940s, elegant, refined, and created for fashionable evenings. Then he picked up the second piece, and the owner was immediately surprised to learn that it was Cartier too.
Let's start with the first one here, the Cartier. This would be the latest of the group, probably circa 1940–45.
Right.
And it has one little ruby set into the compact. The second one is Cartier also.
Oh, it is, okay.
This is from the Art Deco period.
At this point, many people would assume that the 2 Cartier pieces were the stars of the story. But the third item changed everything. It was a Minaudière from Paris. And when the appraiser opened it, he immediately spotted the maker's name, Arnold Ostertag, a company less famous than Cartier, but regarded as every bit as talented.
And the first thing that I saw was its maker, Arnold Ostertag, out of Paris. They're not as well known as Cartier and Van Cleef & Arpels, they're neighbors.
Sure.
But they were every bit as talented.
Then the case opened to reveal a miniature world from the 1930s. Inside were a watch, a lighter, a lipstick compartment, a mirror, and a powder compartment. A luxury accessory designed to carry almost everything a woman might need for an elegant evening.
The case itself is 18 karat gold, and it opens to reveal the watch. Here is the lighter, and then the below section opens to reveal the lipstick.
Sure.
So once you take those 2 sections out, the case opens, and one compartment would be for her powder and a mirror.
Yeah.
Then came the valuations.
I would say an auction estimate, you would be looking at $3,000 to $5,000.
Wow.
The black enamel Art Deco Cartier case, conservative estimate because of the condition issue. I would say at auction $6,000 to $8,000.
Oh my gosh.
And this one, the Minaudière, is the star of the group. At auction, a conservative estimate would be $15,000 to $20,000.
That's amazing.
So it's really a wonderful collection.
Wow.
The first Cartier compact was valued at $3,000 to $5,000. The Art Deco Cartier case was estimated at $6,000 to $8,000. But the true star was the Ostertag Minaudière, with an auction estimate of $15,000 to $20,000.
Brought in part of a tea set, which I inherited. My mother passed away in 2006, so I've had them for the last 12 years. My father purchased it at auction in San Francisco around 1961 or 62. The one story that I gathered from speaking with my sister is that my dad picked this up, brought it home, and my mom was furious with him for spending the money on something non-essential.
Some objects are once seen as unnecessary purchases, but many years later, those same objects reveal that someone may have noticed something valuable that everyone else missed. When the owner's father bought this silver tea set at an auction in San Francisco in the early 1960s, the first reaction in the family was not excitement. His mother was actually upset because she believed the money had been spent on something they did not really need. But the piece that once caused disagreement remained in the family for decades. And the real story only began when the expert examined the small marks underneath. Those marks revealed that this was not an ordinary silver set, but a piece of Japanese silver craftsmanship made by Konoike. That origin brought the story back to the Meiji period, a time when Japan expanded its connections with the world and its craftsmen began introducing their skills to an international audience. During this era, many pieces were not created only to be used. They were created to demonstrate the highest levels of craftsmanship. And this coffee pot and teapot showed that through every detail. At first glance, the shape may look familiar to Western eyes, but the decoration carries a distinctly Japanese identity. The dragons were not simply placed on the surface. The artist transformed them into part of the entire design, from the lines wrapping around the body to the handle to the feeling of movement throughout the piece. Combined with the hammered finish on the surface, every detail showed that this was not a mass-produced object, but the work of a highly skilled craftsman. But what made the story even more interesting was that these two pieces were only part of the original set. The family still had many other pieces from the tea service. After more than 100 years, when many silver sets have been separated or lost, having a large set survive together can make a significant difference.
This tea and coffee service is quite rare. They're in really good condition. The two objects you've brought here today, I would insure them together for $30,000.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot considering what else is still unreviewed. All right. I better get them insured.
Just the two pieces brought in were worth tens of thousands of dollars, while the rest of the collection had not even been examined yet. A random decision at an auction ended up preserving a piece of Japanese craftsmanship more than 100 years old. And sometimes the things one generation sees as unnecessary become the treasures that the next generation is lucky enough to inherit. The Cartier citrine jewelry.
Sometimes a jewel will give me that immediate head rush of excitement, and that's what these jewels have done to me.
Not every piece of jewelry makes an expert react before the appraisal has even begun. These pieces did. Sitting inside a red Cartier box were a brooch and a pair of earrings that had belonged to the owner's mother. For years, they were simply cherished family heirlooms. The owner remembered seeing her mother wear them, but never realized just how significant they might be. That changed the moment the Cartier name came into the conversation.
The red box with the Cartier signature inside, they are Cartier jewels. And they are both signed on the back.
The Cartier signature immediately caught the expert's attention. But the real surprise was their age. The family believed the pieces had been purchased in the 1970s. Instead, the expert identified them as being much older.
They are 40s jewels. Because of the austerity years, obviously with the war, you couldn't get the diamonds and the rubies and emeralds and sapphires. And so other stones took over.
These jewels dated from the 1940s, a period shaped by wartime shortages. With diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires becoming difficult to obtain, designers turned to alternative gemstones such as citrine, topaz, and aquamarine. Cartier embraced those materials and transformed them into bold, distinctive designs that remain highly collectible today. Although the earrings had been altered from clip-ons to pierced earrings, they still retained considerable value. The brooch, however, was the piece that truly captivated the expert.
This brooch, which I would run away. I would run away with. I just think it's spectacular. The earrings, because they've been altered, you'd be looking in a region of about £10,000. I would say you're probably looking in the region of around about £30,000.
Together, the family jewelry was worth around £40,000.
Goodness me, that is a lot more than I thought.
But for the owner, the true value extended beyond Cartier and beyond the citrine gemstones. These pieces still carried memories of her mother wearing them on special occasions, turning a remarkable collection of jewelry into an irreplaceable part of her family's story. Some objects seem like pirate treasure when you're a child. Years later, that same object can end up on Antiques Roadshow with a valuation reaching $150,000. That's exactly what happened with this cuff.
Well, my mother gave it to me as a wedding present about 20 years ago. And before that, it had been a gift to my mother from her great-aunt Helen Hayes.
Well, why don't you read how she...
So my mother's name is Ani, and she says, "Darling Ani, your Uncle Charlie picked this as a gift from me years ago. I want you to have it, sort of as a gift of love from both of us. Devotedly, Aunt Helen."
The story was already compelling because of the note that accompanied it. But for years, the owner had little idea what she actually possessed. Some people suggested it was merely costume jewelry. One person even offered her $1,000 after seeing a photograph. Fortunately, she turned the offer down.
I had a friend who sort of intimated that it was costume jewelry and stones were glass. And then I showed someone a photograph of it, and they said, "Well, you know, those stones, I think they're real, and I'll give you $1,000 for it." And I said, "It's a family heirloom. I don't think I'd sell it for $1,000.
As the research began, the appraiser connected the design to two legendary names in fashion history: Verdura, Chanel, and the famous Maltese cross cuffs that appeared in iconic portraits of Coco Chanel herself.
One of the first pieces he made for her was a pair of Maltese cross bracelets that looked just like this. And she wore them, one on each wrist, and there are a lot of very famous portraits of Coco Chanel wearing these Verdura designed cuffs.
But that was only half the story. Authentic Chanel cuffs from this period are already incredibly rare. This example carried an even bigger surprise. The stones were not imitation gems.
The costume pieces from the 1930s are so rare. When they do come up for auction, the costume jewelry collectors go crazy for them. In 2016, a Verdura for Chanel bracelet that was enamel, a different design, not the iconic Maltese cross, with all faux stones, and it sold for $100,000.
Diamonds, sapphires, rubies, aquamarines, emeralds, and gold were all incorporated into a single cuff. Combined with its provenance through Helen Hayes, it became a piece that stood far outside the ordinary.
To say that this is a rare piece is an understatement. Being as rare as it is from the 1930s and having all real stones, we think a very conservative auction estimate would be at least $100,000 to $150,000.
Goodness. Oh my word.
From a piece once mistaken for costume jewelry and offered only $1,000, this cuff was finally restored to its proper place in history. A genuine treasure carrying the names of Helen Hayes, Chanel, and Verdura.
Sunlight and gold, look at it. It has to be gold.
Beautiful.
Looking like that, doesn't it? What a wonderful, wonderful object. And it's a gold box, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the gold box is secondary to its real function.
At first glance, this object immediately catches attention with its shining gold surface and detailed decoration. But what truly impressed the expert was not just its luxurious appearance. Inside this small box was one of the most complex creations made by 19th century craftsmen, a singing bird automaton. It combined the art of jewelry making with miniature clock making, where every movement was powered by an incredibly detailed mechanical system. and the clue inside revealed where this special creation came from.
And inside we can see the name of the supplier, and he's J.M. Badolet and Sons of Geneva. And that's sometimes a clue to people who know about these things that this is going to be an automaton.
Geneva has long been a famous center for high-quality watches and mechanical creations. In the early 1800s, automatons like this were considered symbols of wealth and exceptional craftsmanship. But the true value of this box was only revealed when the mechanism inside came to life.
It's rather exciting moment. Shall we give it a go?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Here we go. Oh, look at...
Once the box was activated, it showed why these creations once amazed collectors. Inside was a mechanical bird designed to imitate life, from tiny movements to sound. The fact that such a complex mechanism could still function after more than 2 centuries is what made the object so special.
And he's made of hummingbird's feathers.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And his beak is of ivory, and he's got little ruby eyes, I think. And it's a miracle of craftsmanship and clockmaking skill, really.
Every small detail proved that this was not just a gold box, but a rare piece of mechanical art. With precious materials, complex craftsmanship, and the ability to still work after hundreds of years, it became one of the most unique discoveries on Antiques Roadshow.
I remember as a child, I would go to my grandfather's house. This was something that was always sort of proudly displayed in the living room. His dad had passed it to him, and then it passed to my dad and passed to me.
Are you a Baltimore family?
I'm a Baltimore family,
Okay.
correct.
Well, this is fabulous Baltimore silver. So we have a teapot, a coffee pot, and a covered sugar.
Some objects stay in a family for so long that they become part of its memories. Everyone knows they are important, but not everyone knows the real story they have been carrying. For the owner of this silver tea set, it was not an expensive antique locked away for protection. It was something he remembered seeing as a child, proudly displayed in his grandfather's living room. Through the generations, the silver set was passed from his great-grandfather to his grandfather to his father and eventually to him. But what the family had preserved was not just an old silver set. It was a piece of American silver history from more than 200 years ago. When the expert examined it, he identified it as Baltimore silver, created by Charles Louis Boehm, a silversmith working during the early 19th century. At that time, silver coffee and tea services were not simply objects used to serve drinks. They represented status, refinement, and the social position of the people who owned them. A large silver service displayed in a home was a way for a family to show its taste and success. But what made this set special was not only its size, it was also the period and design behind it. Created during the Federal period, the set reflected the influence of European neoclassical design, focusing on balance, elegance, and carefully controlled details. Instead of relying on excessive decoration, its value came from proportion, craftsmanship, and the subtle quality of every line. The engraved details and family monogram also showed that it once belonged to a specific family, helping preserve the story behind the piece. For collectors, antique silver is not judged only by the amount of metal it contains. What matters more is who made it, when it was created, and the journey it has survived. After more than 2 centuries, many silver services have been separated, lost, or disappeared completely. But this Charles Louis Boehm set remained together and continued passing through generations of the same family.
The scale is fabulous and a maker that is very desirable. And for insurance purposes, I would look at a figure at around $30,000.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you think it's something that can actually be used? Can it be used with coffee and tea in it?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure.